Welcome back to Thrive Yoga Fit Transformational Coaching. This is Erin. So it is my first podcast of the week, and this is going to be a short one. I've been following the short sort of like TikTok trend that has been going on as far as making shorter videos. You might notice today I'm a little nasally. I have a little cold. My friend Nicole recommended drinking onion water, which I actually did because, YOLO or whatever. And it seemed to work. I still feel like congested, but hopefully it'll clear up. And if not, I'll have a second serving of onion water because, that's what dreams are made out of. But I'd much rather drink onion water than be sick. So it's just a little something, but, if you notice that I'm a little bit more nasally than usual, that's why. So I wanted to talk today's podcast about the evolution of friendships. So, being in a relationship with someone is hard. Friendships can be challenging too, especially when one person is growing in a certain direction and another person is growing in another direction. I've had this happen. I actually coach people on this kind of thing a lot too. And those in recovery experiences too, because, it's like let's say that you make a commitment to yourself and you're like, this is my year. I'm going to change, right? I'm going to, stop doing certain things and I'm going to show up for myself. I'm going to make my dreams come true and all that. And all that sounds glamorous, right? And it's great. I highly recommend, that's what I help people do, right? I help people to get their story straight, get their vision straight, look at all the things that have been preventing you from doing that. And I help them to grease the tracks for them and help to remove blocks and all that. That is what my career is built on. So don't stop doing that. But it's not all glamour and rainbows and sparkles. When you make a commitment to change things in your life, you're like, yeah, actually, I'm going to start waking up early. Now I'm going to do yoga practice and I'm going to stop eating crappy food. I'm going to stop drinking. You make all these positive changes in your life. Guess what? If you had people that you would engage in those activities with, they might not like that you're changing. And it's not because they're bad people. It's because that was their way to connect with you. So for example, I knew some gals that, they would go off together and they were kind of like binge buddies. This is when I was back in college, and I would watch them, and I'd watch the one gal, and she really seemed like she didn't want to do that anymore, but I could tell that she wanted to connect with that gal that, probably encouraged the binging. And so then they would go out together, 11 o'clock at night and go to IHOP. And then I'd see her the next day and I would, just kind of hear and talk to her. And she's beating herself up. Why'd I do that? Why'd I do that? It's well, okay, there's a reason why you did it for so long is one, you're getting something out of it, right? When you binge eat or you eat a lot of food, it dulls the sensation of whatever you're experiencing in that moment, which by the way, it also dulls the sensation of good feelings too. It's not just a one-way street. So it's doing that for you. But then also, if you're also bonding over it, oof, yeah. So, and then it's if that's what the friendship is based on, then you can kind of have a recipe for disaster, especially if you try to make changes in your life. It's waking up early. I have friends that I dearly love that they are night owls and I love them. But they want me to go to these events that are super late, into the wee hours of the night. I'm I'm in bed at 9 o'clock. I'm lame. I mean, I'm pretty cool. I'm a roller derby girl and I'm a yogi life coach that I think has pretty good style and cool earrings and accessories and maybe some nice things to say here and there. But, the fact that I don't go out super late, most of the time I'll make exceptions occasionally, but that certainly would affect the friendship, especially, having gone out with them, having late night escapades. So, when you make the decision to change things in your life, a lot of the times friendships will change. Now, the ones that are meaningful and that the person is understanding, and or maybe they're growing along with you, like maybe not even in the same direction, but like they're working in themselves, things like that. Sometimes those things can work out, but a lot of times, like for example, when people take teacher training or coach training, like they start waking up. They start unfreezing themselves, and then they start like, oh gosh, I do have needs, and oh wow, I do want to voice them, and like, holy shit, I want to create boundaries in my life. And like I all of a sudden, like, I don't like complaining and gossiping about other people. Like I like to like look at the positive side of things. All that stuff changes if you are in a friendship with someone that does the opposite of that. You're going to be less attracted to them energetically. It's true. They literally vibe lower. Like if you get like gossiping and like complaining about people, and there's a difference between complaining and venting. Like everybody needs to vent. Sometimes you just need to say, like I say, everybody has terrible, nasty thoughts. Like everybody does. And having a safe space to blat where somebody's not going to judge you, like that has value. And certainly, maybe even hiring a coach, getting coached on some of these things that you're spinning around in your head about. All that has value. But like when you are cyclically complaining and you aren't making changes in your life and you're repeating the same thing, you are rehearsing that story. What happens when you rehearse anything in life? You get good at it. Right? So you get a choice. Now, I will also say this, that if you're the type of person that, listens to somebody do this and you're like, oh, well, this is our only way to bond, like, you might also be enabling that behavior for that person. Why? Because you're holding space for them to just like, and then if you're engaging with it too, like you're telling them, okay, this is acceptable behavior. I'm here for it. And like, give me the tea. If they have that outlet to like complain to, then they're probably going to keep doing it. Case in point, I shared this story a few times on this podcast, but like, a couple years before my mother passed away, her and I would get on the phone and she would complain about my brothers and sisters or sister and, my dad. And like, she just, wrapped him in her thoughts. She was unaware. And I found myself like, God, I want to pick up the phone. Like I see my mom call. I'm like, ugh. Which is not a nice feeling to have about your mother. Like I love my mom. And so I had to set a boundary with her and, she didn't like it. And she did wind up, I had to hang up on her. I said, Mom, I love you so much. But I didn't know about needs back then when I set this boundary. But I said like, I love you very much. But like when you complain about my brothers and sisters and my dad, it's really a bummer. I just don't have the emotional bandwidth for it. I'm going to hang up. I'd rather connect with you in a different way. And she got upset. She started cursing at me. So I hung up on her. She called back. She started yelling. I said, Mom, I'm going to hang up again if you don't. Okay. Hung up. And then she called me back. And then that third time I said, Mom, okay, I love you very much. I'm going to hang up. She said, no, please stop. Wait. And then our relationship changed. So I share that story because sometimes that's what it takes to bring awareness to people. And also think about it. If you are changing, you're working so hard to change. Are you going to give all that up because it makes somebody else comfortable? Here's the thing is if you choose to do that, eventually down the line, it's not going to work anyway because you're going to resent them. So rather have the difficult conversation, and or sometimes people just weed themselves out of your life, unfortunately, But the thing is that when you create that space, then, new friends maybe that have a higher vibe, that are more like-minded can come and enter into your life. So anyways, that's my short podcast. I always like testing the line. I love you guys. Thank you for listening. Thank you for making my book a success. If you haven't leave a review on Amazon, that would be my next ask. And I hope you have a fantastic week, and namaste.
Thank you so much for listening. If you want to support the podcast and if it's helping you, please consider writing a review. You can go to iTunes or Google Play, go into the search bar and type in Thrive Yoga Fit Transformational Coaching, scroll down, and you can leave a review. This helps other people to find me as well as bumps us up in the search ratings. Also, this podcast is sponsor-free, so that means we don't receive anything for doing it. If you feel so inclined and this podcast is helping to support you and you want to return the favor and help to support any production costs of the podcast, feel free to give a donation to a Venmo link, Thrive Yoga Fit, or PayPal, Erin@erincoach.com. If you don't have the means, don't worry about it. We're not going anywhere. You're all good. But if you would like to give back, you can give back in those ways. Last thing, we have a coaching certification coming up, and it's 7 days of an intensive work, followed by a 3-month mentorship. You will not find another teacher that's more passionate and dedicated than I am to my students and their learning, and not just their learning, but the application and how they show up in their life. If you've been listening to this podcast and it's had a huge impact on your life, just imagine what it would be like to spend 7 intensive days with me and then a 3-month mentorship. You can check that out at thriveyogafit.com/coach-certification. Again, thriveyogafit.com/coach-certification. Thank you so much. Namaste.